Good afternoon, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the weekly energies with today's Monday's Musings on the 16th of March 2026. This week it's important to recognise what we need to share and why we feel we need to share it. Now, I'm fully aware that that has been the theme of the videos for as long as I can actually remember now. And we may come up against that. We may come up against repetitive energies this week that feel as if no matter what we do, it's the same. Whether that's conflict outside, whether that's arguments within the family, whether that's feelings about certain situations. We may feel as if there's a real injustice, and that's going to cause a frustration and an anger within us. The invitation this week, mine started this weekend. The invitation this week is to recognise where we could be acting not differently but more expansively. Now, that's not to say that whatever is going on isn't a great opportunity to be inspired, ignited, triggered, glimmered, whatever word you want to call it. The question this week is, what are we doing about that? Are we willing to hold that flame within us, to allow it to illuminate areas that we have yet to see, including our own within certain circumstances? I was going to say situations and circumstances all in one go. Recognising that everything is weaving in and out and of itself this week. What I see in my mind's eye is the snake eating its tail, okay? And now I can see, earlier in the video previous to this, I saw David Bowie dressed up in Labyrinth, but now I can see the magician and the snake around the sacral centre, around the creative centre that continues to eat its own tail. This week we are being encouraged to look at the stories that we have allowed to play out so that we learn, so that we can heal, so that we can retrieve and connect. Yeah, we must connect to the parts we're trying to retrieve. Okay, so if we're trying to retrieve peace in our life or abundance in our life or love in our life, we must connect to it first and make it an environment that it wants to return to. And that does mean facing some of our own shadows this week. One of the emphasis, my hands keep being pulled into a triangle, right? The element of fire, okay, but also to be of service to the masculine and the feminine. One of the essences this week, one of the elements that keeps rising this week is our understanding of fire. As we go from Pisces season with this Pisces new moon, we're going to have water, right? We're going to have Pisces. We're going to have that real blurred edge, no boundaries, not quite being able to get clarity of situations that we want to get truth and honesty from as we go into Ariesseason, which is all about fire and drive and ego and identity and forward movement. It's what this next year is going to have the undercurrent of. But it demands that we understand fire. It demands that we understand not only the presence of it and the power of it and what we can get out of it in transformation, but the process of fire itself. It demands that we understand the balance that is now necessary in our own reactions and the repetitions that are around us. This isn't about whether or not we've caused certain things or whether or not things are happening. This really isn't about that. It's about acknowledging the flow through it all this week. It's not about changing what we're doing, but expanding on it. So an example, this weekend I was incredibly frustrated, very acutely aware of injustices, very angry, very angry for myself, for my family, for the world at large, for holding the image and the vision of an alternative and it never seeming to happen. And I realised where I'd stopped in that process, where I'd become caught in the frustration. I'd allowed myself to feel it, but then I'd tried to hope that in feeling it, it would just pass. I'd done my bit, I could move on. I was trying to fix it without realising I was trying to fix it. Now that isn't acceptance. This week we're going to be encouraged to look at repetitive cycles that are appearing. It can be viruses, it can be conflict, it can be war, it can be things that are happening in the news, it can be in your family, anything that makes you feel unsafe, understandably, and looking at your reaction to that, your go-to narrative behind that. It's not that it's right or wrong, but there is more than one chapter to our stories. Okay, so it is an invitation this week to feel into what's happening, to really work with what's happening, not to fix it or get rid of it, but to take it to the next stage and to take ourselves to the next stage. So underneath the frustration and the anger, which was justified, underneath the frustration and the anger that I felt, there was also a acknowledgement that I refuse to let this carry on the way that it is now down to me to do my part in a more expanded way to change things. That starts with me and then the environment around me. So if we can go through the process of what we're feeling, if we can acknowledge that feelings are a process and not stop, don't eradicate the stages. That's like eradicating the stages of labour. You're not going to get the endorphins, the pain relief, the courage, the faith to keep going. Don't eradicate the stages, but recognise that it's a stage of something bigger and recognise any resistance behind that for the fear that it ultimately is. So the version of me behind it all that wants to change things, has stood in my room this morning with a checklist of things that need to be done and sorted my end. And there's no avoiding that if I want things to shift. When we feel into the element of fire, we are also being encouraged this year to feel into how we create with it, what we do with it, how we carry it, how we perceive it, and to take a little bit more accountability of that creative energy within us. It might not be how we expect. Okay, so for me, the comfort zone would be run ahead with it, do this, do that, change this, change that, fight. That would be my comfort zone. This morning, the reason this video is later than planned, I'd sat in front of my computer after the daily dose, writing about how things needed to change. And then in the true sense of the word, so being aware this week that a lot of the learning coming through now needs to be experiential. It's one thing to know, it's one thing to see patterns, but it's another to acknowledge our role within it and then make a choice whether or not we want to continue them in the way that they're being continued. Writing about how things were changing, how I needed to change things in my own personal circumstances, sat in front of a computer, all of a sudden my right hip and my right ovary went into the most excruciating spasm. A very familiar pain I once had before with endometriosis and adenomyosis, and the emphasis here is pain that I've had before. Okay, so thankfully I've had this pain before. I knew there was going to be an end to it, but I also knew I had to get up and I had to move around, and it was bloody inconvenient. I wanted to do the video. My husband's home. I wanted to get the video done, get work done so that I could have some balance in my life. Assuming that the balance would come after work, right, and reprioritising things. Instead, I had to get up, I had to do a wound massage, I had to have a bath. This was all things. I had to spend some intimate time with my husband, which I'll get back to in a moment. These are all things, not with my husband, but in this video, these are all things that needed to be done first in order to create something different. Now, I share this because the change may not come. Well, no, it's not going to come from words alone. This year it's not. It's, thought, action. It's the deed of magic itself. We can say one thing, but are we aligned with it in our own actions? It's not going to come from goodwill gestures alone anymore. It's going to come in what we apply to life. It's experiential learning. Now, when I say I'm going to get back to the bit with my husband, the reason I share that is once we release, we need to be acutely aware that energy doesn't die, it changes form. Okay, so once we quote unquote release something, today with the wound massage, with the bath, the pain had eased, the energy that came through my body from my root chakra, it left me in shock. I won't be surprised to find if something has happened externally round about the same time. And we may notice that. With Pisces new moon in Pisces, there's going to be a real blurred edge between what's ours and what's the environment. Okay, so never has it been more important to listen to the body. If the body needs you to stop, it needs you to stop, and you may not understand why. It may not be your injustices that you're feeling. It may not be your pain that you're feeling. But what does your body need to move through that process? And whatever is being moved through you to move through that process. But also acknowledging cycles are there for a reason. It may not be that we're not releasing what we need to release. It may be more, what are we bringing in its place? Okay. Once you deliver, what are you then conceiving with? What energy are you bringing into this space that is now more balanced and more in harmony and more healed this week? It's a two-way process, okay? Well, it's actually a triangular process with you observing it, but releasing and bringing in, releasing and bringing in. This is cycles, and we forget that. When we talk about cycles, when we talk about repetition, it's normally in a very negative way. Something has happened again. What haven't I learned again? Maybe looking at areas where we can flip the narrative this week. Have we changed in that situation? You know, this weekend I could have very easily, and it would have been very easily got stuck in the narrative of no matter what, sitting with that little bit longer, and it's really not taking much anymore. Sitting with that little bit longer. Okay, what I haven't brought in is a different story. Okay, so the body is just going to keep producing what it knows unless it's given an alternative. And that can be really difficult. If we have nothing different to base something on, it can be really hard to imagine an alternative. So the invitation this week is to get out there and explore. Explore alternatives, explore different ways, even with yourself. You know, you don't even have to leave the house. This morning I could have sat in front of the computer and pushed through and carried on because I'm great at that. But instead I stopped and thought, let me try something different here. And I'm so glad that I did. One, I feel tons better. Two, whatever happened this morning, whether it's me, whether it's the earth, whether blah, 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 it really doesn't matter. Whatever happened, it shifted and moved through me. And it was quite an experience. I had a wonderful time with my husband. I had a lovely breakfast. I had a womb massage. I had a beautiful salt bath. These were all things that were planned for the evening after I'd done the quote unquote work. This week is an invitation to realize that we are the work. Until we can really embody that and ground in that, everything is going to be separate, everything is going to be in conflict, and everything is going to be out there rather than in here, and therefore out of our perceived control. Perceived control, impact, even that has connotations, right? The perceived control out of our own way of changing or doing or creating things. Okay, so being aware of that as well. The struggle that we may have with perceiving control, the struggle we may have with perceiving the leaders that we have come here to be with our own lives, and then whatever we're being asked to bring into the world around us as a result, taking that accountability this week, starting with ourselves. There was something else I was going to share about the frustration and the anger, and it has left me. It no longer feels relevant. If it is, it will come up. Giving ourselves permission for that this week. There are going to be times when things happen and we will rerun the same pattern, but the things that have shifted, that we have restructured within us, will move quickly. That process will move quickly. The temptation there is to reflect over it and wonder if we've done enough. I've written a post today about the fact that I have my Fitbit back on, and I have it back on because I have a tendency to focus every day on all the things I haven't achieved. You know, I haven't gone for a walk, I haven't done this, I haven't done that. So I've got my Fitbit now to show me the steps that I am doing, to show me the actions that I am taking, that I'm often unaware of. And we're all capable, I was going to say guilty, worthy of this. We're all worthy of acknowledging how far we've come. So when we look over repetitive cycles, this isn't about berating ourselves. We're back here, can't believe we're doing this again. This isn't about, oh, my reactions need to be changed or different. This is about acknowledging how you react, how things have shifted, and then acknowledging the strength and faith needed to take you forward. I always find it ironic that when we go to the gym and we do repetitions, we know that we're strengthening our muscles. When we watch the moon and she has her cycles and her phases, it's part of her structure. When we think about the female cycle, it's a normal aspect of life. But if something in life comes back up to be focused on, it's often in a negative, I can't believe this has come back round. Well, believe it, because life is circular. Life is cyclic. That's what it does. The invitation is to look at something and say, okay, so what part of this am I now done with, and what part of this do I want to take in? The truth is, I will probably never get rid of the story of there being injustices in my life and in the life around us, because life is dark and light. There are often imbalances as an opportunity to restore that harmony. The question is whether or not we're going to take a good hard look at that, acknowledge where we haven't expanded on our actions, and accept the invitation to do so. I'm going to leave it there because obviously on Instagram I can only do 20 minutes, and I'm going to look at the energies for the week ahead. 9 of Cups is underneath and the Faith card. I'm going to use the Tarot of Dreams deck, and it's probably a deck I've avoided because they're not your average depiction of the tarot. They're not your average way of looking at things. So here I think this is the Queen of Swords. You have half a female form and then the rest is sword-like. She doesn't have any body. Acknowledging not just the image in front of us, but the physical representation of it this week is going to be key. Okay, so I'm aware we still have a few minutes on Instagram. For those that aren't going to catch up on the whole reading for the week ahead, because there is an essence of FOMO this week. There is an essence of fear of missing out, even with drama. Okay, so being aware if something isn't triggering you or resonating with you, it doesn't mean that you're faulty. Doesn't mean that you should be feeling something you're not. Really honouring, I was going to say acknowledge, but really honouring your own vibration. That's the other side of Aries, right? Half of us have hissy fits or get very wobbled when we're not in our own energy, when we're not in what we're bringing to the table, when we don't believe ourselves in a situation that we may be enough to create change or to hold space for whatever is happening. Page of Cups and the High Priestess. Any intuitive wisdom that is coming to you in the form of cycles this week is an opportunity to make a new start with that. The choice obviously is up to us and how we decide to see that, our own perspective. I've done a lot on the vision and a lot of the on the changes of sight that are coming up, and I know there's a lot of people out there if you want further information on that, but ultimately sight comes from our actions, and our actions come from how we perceive something. If you take nothing else from this video or from anything in life, look at how you're seeing something. Look at how that affects your actions. Take responsibility intuitively for the wisdom that that can bring. So for those on Instagram, I'm going to end this video here just because it's going to cut halfway into the week, and there may be that energy this week where the first half of the week is completely different from the latter half, and that is going to require that we seek out the information that we need. And if that's you, the rest of this video will be on Instagram, or if you're on TikTok, you hopefully will get the whole video the whole way through. Until next week, I shall see you then. For those of you that are on TikTok and on YouTube, thank you for sticking it out, for staying for all of the information and all of the wisdom, and for choosing to expand on what you may already know. Let's look at the energies this week and how to best navigate them. It doesn't feel as complicated as we're made to believe. It doesn't feel as hard as we're made to believe. The temptation is to seek more because there is a lack of trust. Okay. Interesting, we have the Eight of Wands at the bottom here, and we have a lot of birds that look like doves and that look like peace and the piece of alignment. But when I first looked at this card, all I saw was the Ten of Wands. When I first looked at it, and then I debated whether or not it was the Nine of Wands, and then I lost all structure and all numerical understanding. all order and all chaos, recognizing that the chaos that we perceive in our lives at the moment is actually an invitation of alignment, and also recognizing that chaos itself isn't as unstructured in order as we believe it to be. A lot of us are learning to cope more with changes because we're more solid in who we are. We're more aligned, in-lined with who we are. And in doing so, we're starting to see that the world around us, the way that things play out, although they may not always make mental sense, are playing out. And it's actually an energy that we're becoming more and more familiar with, comfortable with. Now, I have to check myself as well how I feel about suggesting that chaos can be something we can be comfortable with. Acknowledge what you deem as chaos this week, particularly in the more cycle based natures. There's oh yes, I forgot that. And I would have forgot that for the Instagram guys as well. There's a return of wisdom from the earth that's coming. So I have in my bra a spherite crystal that I bought many months ago that has a whole story of its own, that I lost last time I was at the cemetery. Completely lost it. And spherite crystal is the warrior stone, right? I thought I'd get it with Ariesseason, which would be perfect, and I lost it. Lost it down by the cemetery in the land that holds my ancestors. 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later, 6 weeks later, however long it was, going there yesterday for Mother's Day, tending to the grave, moving some of the dirt back, embedded in the soil, was my spherite crystal. Nobody's picked it up. It was as if my ancestors had held it for me until I was ready to take back that fire, to take back that flame. And when I first picked it up, when I cleansed it, first picked it up, it was intense. It was intense. I felt a lot of rage, and it wasn't just mine. I felt a lot of anger, a lot of injustice, and it wasn't just mine, but I could feel that it wasn't just mine. And in that, I could feel that it wasn't just mine to hold either. And it wasn't just mine to work through either. And in that, I wasn't alone. Now, the energy this week, there's going to be a lot coming up from the earth. There's going to be a lot coming up that reminds us of the, not battle, but the path that we've walked, and the remembrance within us as a result. And that's going to come in with a lot of psychic energy as well. Don't be surprised if the earth unearths many civilizations and many understandings and remembrance of that. And that's going to trigger us too. Okay, be with that. Sit with that. Acknowledge that it's coming from the earth and all those that have walked upon her and all those that have held this. We are not on our own here. All that is being asked of us is inner alignment. In these chaotic times, in these cyclic times, in these end times, okay, for something new to come in, all that is being asked of us is that we do all we can. Stop, drop, make love. Okay, so physically, if that's your thing, or, you know, cook a beautiful meal, or go out in the garden, or hug your loved ones, and acknowledge that that is enough. Will that be everything that you're asked to do? No, absolutely not. But it will be the first step before you're asked to do anything, because your vibration will be completely different. It may feel as if we can't give that. It may feel as if we don't have anything left to be able to. This morning, the last thing I needed was to stop, have a bath, you know, do my womb massage, all those kind of things. But it's changed the game. So those things you really feel that you don't have the energy for, the people, the situations, oh, I'll do that later, I'll do that later. Maybe, just maybe, looking at any resistance there and what you can gain by doing it now. By making that more of a priority. By looking at your own personal philosophies of what is important to you. There is going to be guilt with that. There's going to be shame with that. There's going to be a I can't do everything for everyone type energy with that. But trust the process. The guidance this morning with the daily dose was that fire, transformation itself, isn't fast. Doesn't need speed. Sorry, it needs trust. It needs trust. When we think of the flame, if we're, it blows itself out. It burns itself out, and that's what is the resistance this week. Understandably, the fear of burnout. Why? Well, it's not the burnout itself. What happens when we burn out? There's a scarcity. So it's the fear of scarcity. It's the fear of not having enough, not doing enough, not being enough, that comes up when everyone is feeling unsafe. So what can you do to bring yourself back into alignment as the world plays out around us? Because there's a new coming in, but every time it tries to come in, we are all going back to our old stories as an opportunity to take that little bit further, to push us and the situation that little bit further, to create that friction and change. What are we bringing in? What stories are we allowing to come back in with all the work that's been done? And yes, it can be hard to know an alternative, but it also can be a clean slate to create one. Okay, Monday. I need to have a drink there. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Overall, it's a full-on week. It is a full-on week when it comes to fire. When it comes to that energy of fire, we've had a inkling of it this weekend, or the last week or so, an inkling of something rising within us all. My nose is squeaking. I'm being reminded of the fire breathing, one of the shamanic practices that you can do to cause friction within the body and allow things to burn through. This week, everything that is happening is a chance to do that. Bring it in. Bring it in. On the Monday, we have the Queen of Wands. Now, the Queen of Wands, yeah, we have the element of the fact that she's very creative, she's very sensual, she's very psychic, very in tune, very transformative in her aura, and very alluring. She draws things in. A lot of misconception around the Queen of Wands is she's gung-ho. That's the Knight of Wands. Okay, this is the Queen of Wands. She has done the gung-ho part. The feminine has done the gung-ho part, even though it feels like now more than ever we are being asked, particularly as women, to stand on the front line, so to speak, energetically. That doesn't mean to go gung-ho as such, but to nurture what we're feeling, to allow it to fill our veins, to remember the wild calling within us that says enough now. But that goes for my actions too. Enough now. The Queen of Wands is somebody who's in the normal tarot decks, one of the only court cards that sits with her legs wide open, okay, front facing, wide open, connected to her root chakra, connected to her sacral, connected to her heart, connected to her third eye, allowing this energy to move through. Yeah, thank you. It's a Kundalini energy, but it isn't coming up, it's coming down through the body and into the earth, because we are allowing different energies to come in now. If we can get out of the way, if we can get out of the way of our own ego. Now, I'm a big fan of ego. I think ego is what helps us to make things happen. Okay, so I'm not saying eradicate the ego. What I'm saying is acknowledge where things start to come in, they start to shift, they start to change, and our mind egoically can get in the way of this energy that wants to go down through the body, and it's stopping us from conceiving something different. My right ear is hurting, so it does feel very much related to the masculine actions. I don't mean men, I don't mean women, I mean the actions themselves. Okay, so we can feel what needs to be done. Are we doing it? This morning, I could have felt that pain and I could sat and pushed through it. I can quite easily do that, but what needed to be done was something different. Can we feel that and act on it? Feeling and awareness and talking about it isn't enough anymore. The Queen of Wands nurtures, and she nurtures in her actions. She draws that energy in. She allows something different to occur within her, and then her actions are vibrationally matched to the outcome. You may not know what you want. You may not know what the alternative is. So go out and seek it. Go out and create it. Go out and make a different story for yourself, purely in your response to it all. On the Tuesday, we do have the Ten of Wands, and that's where I feel like I almost can't breathe. I'm having a lot of women coming to me at the moment for healings and for readings that are struggling to breathe, that are feeling as if there's a weight on their chest. I'm very aware that there is the link to the Sahara sands, okay, but this is more than that. This is the link to Egyptian medicine. This is the link to our own inner vision, our own ability to perceive something and to become a physical medium for that perception and create something different in how we see. This is grief that has been on our chest for far too long, based around things that have been created and our often unknown role within it. This is an expansion of the heart chakra, but all of this relies on our ability to open our hips. It relies on our ability to, in this card, it's the inner child pose almost in yoga with the Ten of Wands. Can't quite see it because of all of the light, but it's the inner child. It's the masculine here doing the inner child pose. Back down to the earth. Humble. When did being humble become unfashionable? You know, humble means to be of the earth. It means to be of the soil. It means not to know your place. It's not about praying to something externally, but bringing that inner connection back to the very ground that we walk, back to the very actions that we are part of. This goes beyond the inner child to the inner wild. Now, this goes beyond navel gazing to balancing our nerves, to balancing our alignment, our vision, our energy, our life. Yeah, that navel word to what is going on in front of us. On the Tuesday, that can feel as if it's a bit too much, or we may be encouraged to feel where things are a bit too much. This morning it came through like a shocker. This morning it took over my body, and it did, like the Ten of Wands, bring me to my knees. I couldn't hardly stand up at all. This morning it petrified the hell out of me, the amount of pain all of a sudden, and it had so much memory with it that came up from the earth through my body, my own included. All that was needed was to stop and pause and be with it and listen to the body. On the Tuesday, it's at the end game here, it's at the end point here, provided we can be different in our actions or reactions towards that. On the Wednesday, we have another fire card, so 3 fire cards in a row so far, and it is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of Wands. Interesting. I knew it was the 9 of Wands, but I didn't want to trust it. I wanted to count it out and figure it out myself. On the Wednesday, the difference between defensiveness and defiance is making our own understanding of something, finding our own truth. It is related to spirituality. There's going to be a big upsurge of awareness around religion. That isn't always going to be comfortable, and in relation to the feminine as well. It isn't just going to be masculine orientated. Awareness around the feminine, of deception, of pain, of wounds, of trauma, that is going to rise in us all. There's many people we've put on a pedestal, right? So my mother was on the pedestal for me my whole life, but looking back, there are things that don't work for me. That just don't work for me, and in truth probably didn't for her, which meant she was all inauthentic at that moment with herself. Can we admit that this week, particularly on the Wednesday? Can we admit the truth that we've come face to face with, and whether or not it's authentic to our own spiritual self? Are we using it as a convenient way to not get any further? Now, I know that's said with harshness, and it isn't meant that way. It's about being honest and about being real. Because on the Thursday, we have the 4 of Wands. When it comes to language this week, when it comes to 111s and 222s and angel numbers and number plates and coincidences on clocks and things like that, be very mindful of how they've become a placating perspective to accept things that may not be acceptable. I'm going to leave it there. We've all done it, right? It's a sign. It's a sign. It can be a sign of the story that we want to continue being part of as well. So again, I said it last week, there's a lot of psychic energy coming in. Use your discernment. Are you seeing this from where you want to see it? Are you being honest with what you feel? Are you making it fit? On the Thursday, we have the 4 of Wands, and there is an opportunity here to walk through now. Is Thursday a portal? Wednesday is the new moon. Oh, Ariesseason. Yeah, that would be the 20th. Yes, the 20th. So as we go into Ariesseason, it is almost like a doorway, okay? And that's really what I'm feeling, what I have been feeling for the last few weeks, that we're kind of in the remnants, not only of Pisces season, but the remnants of the last however many years, 14 years or so, that we are, I know we had all those big shifts into Aries, but actually as we go into Ariesseason, it's like everything starts to slot into place. I'm being shown when I went to Canada. When I went to Canada, I stood on the land, and for the first time ever, my husband's father was Canadian, and the first time ever, my husband made incredible sense to me. All of his actions, just who he was, made incredible sense. I felt his language from the land from where he came. On the Thursday, that's going to be the opportunity to walk through what is occurring now and find a place that makes sense. A place from within, a place externally. That includes your tribe, that includes the workplace that you find yourself in, that includes the relationships that you find yourself in. Thursday is a portal. It's not something I would normally say because I'm a big fan that portals are within us and they normally tie in with new moons, full moons, magical dates, all that kind of thing. But Thursday is a game-changing portal for us all if we are courageous enough to walk through the door into something different in the Four of Wands. Come the Friday, we have the Five of Pentacles. Come the Friday, we're going to come face to face with any scarcity mindset that has prevented this so far. Recognize that on the Friday, it's not that we are walking into the same situations. It can feel that way, but it's almost like it's what's been stood in the way of something new all along. Because on the Saturday we have the Fool and on the Sunday we have the Star card. So Friday is an invitation to look at where we have been less than ourselves. Necessarily so, because on the Saturday there is this new journey, there is this new playfulness here, recognizing that joy is what gives us balance and transformation. So often, you know, lessons have to be hard, lessons have to be this, they have to be that. You know, we've earned that lesson, we've earned that wisdom. They can be fun, they can be joyful. Also, it's all in the perspective on the Saturday. Not everyone's going to get that, and that's okay. It's not our job. It's no one's job to change the opinion and perspective of others, just our own. And that's going to change how we perceive our role, and that's going to make that lighter. That's going to make that more fun. That's going to make that more enjoyable. Provided we can look at the hoops that we're holding, that we're asking others to jump through, and that we're still jumping through ourselves. On the Sunday, we then have the Star card. Do you know, I look at this and I see the two jugs and I see the past and I see the present. I see it all forming backwards and forwards, and I see the feminine holding it all. I won't show it up to the camera because she's naked, so I have to be quite careful that this video doesn't get banned as a result, because heaven forbid we see a naked, raw, vulnerable image of ourselves, right? But what I can see underneath it all, what I'm being drawn to focus on the whole way through, is the light. It is the light that we continue to gain or push away this week that is going to make the difference in the stories that we continue then to create. We have the Emperor. Overall this week we have the Emperor energy. No, we don't. We have the Six of Wands, but it is emporic. Okay, so it reminded me of the Emperor card straight away. The victory this week isn't just, oh, I managed to get through that. It is, I excelled at that. I am victorious in that. I led with that. I took the fire outside of me and the fire above me and the fire around me and within me, and I created an armor that will prepare me for whatever is to come in the weeks, months, years ahead. We can feel secure in our job, we can feel secure in our relationships, we can feel secure in our home, we can feel secure in everything out there, but ultimately at one point things will change, things change. How secure do we feel inside? You can be stocked up with all the food in the world. You can grow all the plants in the world, and I'm not saying don't do that. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's ironic that we've waited until conflict to really look at the benefits of being self-sustaining. But you can have all of that and still feel insecure inside. This week is an invitation to look at where that scarcity mindset is coming from, honestly, truly, to decide whether you want to continue walking through that path, whether or not you want to keep repeating that, burning yourself out so you can re-inspire yourself, whether you want to keep creating that, the shadow aspect of the Queen of Wands, or whether you want to look at the light within it all along and take that forward. The stability that comes from connecting to the inner alignment of yourself. your own soul, your own mind, and your own body, and your own connection here on the earth. This weekend, I could see that the injustices were pissing me off, and they were pissing me off enough to cause a reaction, but that reaction was still coming from a scarcity defensive mindset. It doesn't have to be that way. There are alternatives, and if you can't find them, maybe it's a chance to create them. I'm going to leave it there. Take care, and I'll see you next week.